FBI/CIA agents of Reddit, what's something that you can tell us without killing us? I worked with the Australian Federal Police with the Spider Squad doing computer stuff for them in regards to pedis and finding trafficking victims. It is the most heartbreaking work, but when you get them, the office looked like NASA after a Mars landing. Edit. Left 3 and bit years ago, but do get called up to lend a hand every now and then. I was an analyst, not an agent/officer. 85% of all classified material is classified because of how it was collected, not because it is juicy/useful. Yes, you boss and co-workers said that shit about you. My dad worked for GCHQ in the 80s doing voice recognition, and he can't say anything more for a decade more. The way they can recognize you by Siri/Google today was being used in the 80s. Just a bit slower. My high school girlfriend worked for the National Reconnaissance Office after college. At the time, they were responsible for analyzing the nation's spy satellite photos. She told me 2 things. There's a special garbage chute for classified materials. It's in the hallway. When you are new, as a hazing ritual, they tell you have to shout your badge number down the chute before throwing in any materials. This is hilarious. She wouldn't tell me anything about the resolution quality of the spy photos, of course, but she did let it slip that, because Russian sailors will sunbathe nude on the decks of their submarines in the Black Sea, several women in the office would pin those photos up in their cubicles as cheesecake beefcake photos. So a few decades ago, US spy photos could resolve Russian penis. Edit. Credit/you/seditious3. Met an old, retired, CIA spook at a wedding reception. Spitting image of Colonel Sanders. He was amazing. So I asked him, I don't want you to tell me anything you can't, but I'd love to know, when Kennedy got killed, what was the talk around the water cooler in the office? He didn't halt or pause to think. Hell, we all thought Johnson did it. My dad worked for the government, and he told me that anytime he had a meaningful interaction with someone who wasn't American, i.e. going over to my friend's house for Lunar New Year, or going on vacation to Canada, he had to report it all, and if he saw anything suspicious. We are all told never to use sites like this, and social media in general is pretty much a no-go. If you go through the FBI interview process, it takes a while. Chances are you're going to have to spend some time working on crimes against children, which is really tough and most people don't want to do it. Not an FBI or CIA officer here, but my sister is a district attorney, and over the years she has prosecuted a number of animal cruelty cases. This led to her having an ongoing partnership with the FBI for the last several years. It turns out the FBI started tracking animal abuse cases about 10 to 15 years ago due to the incredibly high correlation between abusing animals when you're young and becoming a serial violent offender as an adult. There is a book called Moscow Rules. It was written by 2 CIA people, all about, well, disguise. The CIA had all these agents in Russia, but the Russians were insane about following literally every single American in Russia, 24/7, looking for spies. So a huge part of their job was trying to shake off the KGB. They had crazy quick change disguises, all sorts of stuff. The movie Argo was based on one of the writers somewhat unrelated, but my great uncle was a FBI agent. Every time we would ask him if he had any interesting stories, but he would say he was sworn to secrecy. After 10 years of hearing this, my sister asked really, and he responded with no, I just don't remember anything interesting happening. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but a mentor who definitely wasn't supposed to tell me used to be a white hat for the FBI. Apparently, all he did was search for pedophiles by tracking child pornography. He said he didn't stay for very long because it was messing with his mentality. Edit. If you guys were wondering, he left to join the Navy, became a nukem, but they pulled him out of the program because of his cybersecurity skills, and before I left our command, he was helping RCMC connecting his computer to a projector. Sorry to put you on the spotlight, M1. An ex-company man once told me Get Smart was more accurate than James Bond. Worked with a woman who was former NSA. We would always beg her to tell us shit, but she never did. The one thing she did say, though, was that during training they show them a video of a bunch of things they found out about and stopped. She said she hardly slept for 2 weeks after watching that. Operation Ivy Bells was a plan to tap Soviet communication lines. The cover story they used was that they had divers diving down to recover fragments of a new Soviet supersonic anti-ship missile. The communication line tap was a failure due to a spy. However, the dive team successfully recovered all fragments of the missiles from the Soviet weapons tests. The US was able to reverse engineer one and subsequently learned they were radar guided, only in the assumed guidance did not exist. Yeah, you'd like to know what accounts belong to FBI/CIA agents, wouldn't you? Brian Bendis, creator of Miles Morales, author of House of M, etc., has a story about doing a talk at GBCI at Langley and being told to wait in a break room, not allowed to have his laptop, phone, his own notebook or pen, but was supplied with a notebook when he walked and that would be reviewed when he left. A young analyst walks in for coffee, sees him sitting there, recognized him as famous comic book author Brian Michael Bendis, and starts to react like a fan. He then pauses, starts sweating, and quietly asks Bendis if this is a test of some kind. I'm not one, but my friend is. She went off the grid after she graduated college, got recruited by the CIA. She told us she was interested and majored in political science. I hope she's doing well. I once rented out my old farmhouse to a family. They paid the rent every month and other than not mowing the lawn to save their life I didn't think anything bad about them. That all changed when the D called me to inform me that my renter had been murdered in Mexico and was asking my permission to search the property. Well, it turns out I had unknowingly rented my house to the Mexican mob and they were using it as safe house. It all fell apart for them when two of them got caught with a duffel bag full of meth. My renter had to go back to Mexico to visit his mother and was promptly murdered. Let's just say I no longer am a landlord and never will be again. My great uncle told us late in his life that he didn't work for as an engineer his whole career. He actually worked for the CIA and that's all he would say. Edit, since you're up in my business, my great uncle was a very Christian man. I doubt he was lying or suffering from dementia. That said, I was young when he died and fuzzy on the details. 2 family stories, even though this will probably get buried. 1. My father's uncle told everyone for his entire life that he worked at a button factory. It was only revealed after his death that he, in fact, worked at a missile factory and assembled the gyroscopes for the guidance in missiles. 2. We always knew my grandfather worked for the government at the Pentagon. We never knew exactly what he did, but every 6 months or so he would call up to talk to my mom. The conversation was pretty much always the same. My mom and grandfather would catch up for a few, then the year would turn into, so I have another clearance upgrade coming up. You will probably get a call like always. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Surer than sh*t. A week later some government agency would call up. It was always a different one and ask for my mom. They would ask a bunch of questions and that would be that. When he died from Alzheimer's, at his funeral, 4 men in black suits attended and no one knew who they were. After the burial, they approached his widow and handed her a plaque with 17 government agency symbols on it. Turns out he was responsible for interagency cooperation and training. He basically got everyone to talk to and teach each other. Now his son works for them. Doing what? We don't know and don't ask. My aunt has been an FBI agent for 25 years. The only thing I know about her job is that she's an office administrator. But her information went public somehow when she was part of the team that investigated the Mandalay Bay shooting in Las Vegas. Someone found the name and address of most of the agents that worked that scene and put it up online. Not sure why. She also took me and my family on a tour of the Las Vegas FBI headquarters about 15 years ago. One thing interesting that I remember about the building is that all the doors were floor to ceiling 9-foot doors. Thought that was weird. Not CIA, but I've worked with and know guys in intelligence. Most of the intelligence we get is from OSINT, open source Intel IE news articles, press releases, news networks and government announcements. Most people think that everyone in intelligence is some James Bond Jason Bourne type of individual when in reality, the majority of analysts sit at a desk and go through news articles all day. That said, that's not the only method we have to gather intel, but it is where most of it comes from. Even analysts that are using other methods such as GEOINT, IMINT and SIGINT spend their day cropping images for minute details or replaying and monitoring the same signal over and over again. I talked with some CIA recruiters towards the end of college and almost applied earnestly after a large group Q&A and then a much smaller one. The thing that stuck out to me was that the guys said most CIA agents are out of shape and have limited combat training with guns or hand-to-hand. They made it clear that it's the military that uses force. If confronted, they were trained to immediately surrender or to drop their bags and run if possible. Want to work for them? Prepare to do a fair amount of paperwork. The form will ask for each of your employer contact information of friends, your history of addresses, etc. They will then send an agent to interview a number of these people. Next, you have to take a psychological exam and interviewed by a psychologist. Finally, you'll have one last interview with a polygraph and a professional lie detector. Nice try, Vladimir. Edit. Thanks for the awards, you kind people. Glad I gave you all a good laugh. Not either of these, but I've had a clearance, so I can weigh in a little. Two things. Firstly, most secret shit happens right in front of people's faces under the guise of being normal everyday stuff. Secondly, properly secret programs and operations are never named in any way that indicates what they actually are about. They are generally just two words chosen at random and that would rarely come up in normal conversation. Stuff like cracked gorilla, which I just made up off the top of my head. So when people talk about classified stuff and its name is super topical, it's either very old or a nickname at best. Only public programs and operations have topical names as a PR motive, like Desert Storm. Don't tell anyone, but we spy on people sometimes. Be sure to like and subscribe for more reading Reddit videos. Thanks, bye.